Welcome back to Sunrise Daily, continuing our focus on the national conference as well as the constitution, because what happened in Adamawa had to do with the constitution. And we've got Mr. Robert Clarke with us. He's the senior advocate of Nigeria. You were talking about the situation in Adamawa, and then yes, some lawyers had also pointed that out about who should have assumed responsibility after the governor was impeached, because now the House of Assembly there says, look, both of them were out, either first by impeachment and then resignation. Is that the case for you?
Look, as I said, we lawyers, we always ensure that facts are sacred. So let us look at the facts first. The facts are clear. The House impeached the governor. The House removed the governor. So at the time the governor was removed, they never removed the deputy governor. So the facts on ground is that when the impeachment was constitutionally effected, there was a sitting deputy governor. Now they realized that under the Constitution, when vacancy occurs in governor's post, the deputy governor takes over immediately. They now realize that since the deputy governor had not been impeached, he automatically, under the Constitution, becomes the governor. They didn't want that. So according to the, I was not there, according to the deputy governor, then assembly people now came to him with policemen and guns and asked him to tender his resignation. So, for fear, innocently, he tendered his resignation to the speaker. And the speaker now swears himself. Under Constitution, he can never be a governor, the speaker. Because
take us through this again.
Yeah.
He tendered his resignation to the speaker.
Yes.
Constitutionally, let's
you see,
talk more on that.
constitutionally, when a deputy governor wants to resign as deputy governor, the Constitution says he tenders his resignation to the governor. Now you have impeached the governor. There is no governor. The Constitution also says where the governor's position is vacant, it is the deputy governor that becomes the governor.
So what if the deputy governor wants to resign where there is no governor? Who will he tender his letter to?
He cannot resign because at that stage he becomes a governor, he appoints a deputy, and then he will now resign and hand over to the deputy.
Resign? Or
let me explain it.
Okay, now I get that part where you say that, well, he will have to, he's now governor automatically, whether or not he's sworn.
By operation of the Constitution, he becomes the governor.
He's the governor. So assuming he wants to resign, he would have had to appoint a deputy and then resign to the deputy. Could the House of Assembly have impeached both of them?
Well, they did not. They could.
What if they claim that they impeached both of them?
But we all know that as Nigerians. Because if they had impeached both of them, they would not have asked them to resign. Because resignation and impeachment don't go together. If you are impeached, you cannot resign.
And the news was clear. We understood that he actually tendered his resignation to the House of Assembly. So, but in that kind of situation, assuming both of them were impeached, who then becomes governor?
If both of them were impeached, the speaker automatically, it's just like when the election petition tribunal says, oh, an election has not been done in accordance with the law, and declares those who are elected as having not been elected. The speaker takes over the state until a new election is held. So if you impeach both the governor and the deputy governor, automatically the speaker takes over to allow for a period of time that election would hold. But once you impeach only one out of the two, by the operation of law, the deputy governor becomes the governor. By operation of law. So at the time they were asking him to tender his resignation as the deputy governor, by operation of law, he was already the governor.
So we don't
only to be sworn in.
So we don't look like a lawless bunch, a lawless country. If you say it hasn't actually followed the Constitution,
Oh, yes.
what has transpired in Adamawa State, how can it be remedied?
Well, that is why the Constitution says there are 3 arms of government. He can go to the courts now to set aside the so-called resignation and assume and ask the court to make a declaration that he's still the governor. And once the court makes that, he goes back. At least that avenue is still there. There's still sanity in the judiciary in Nigeria, and the enforceability of judicial processes are still being done in Nigeria.
Okay, so if that happens, will that in any way affect or invalidate the processes of them having elections in, say, 3 months? And if they have elections, will it change anything?
You see, the problem with INEC, and I'm sorry to say this, INEC always believes that until there is a pronouncement from the Supreme Court, then there is no binding court order for them to obey. You all were aware of that during Obasanjo's regime, that INEC, either by design or by accident, always claims that until the Supreme Court pronounces, they are not going to accede to it because there is an appeal, which is wrong. In law, when a high court makes a decision, even if the other party has appealed against it, that decision is still the final decision until it is set aside. So if the High Court in Adamawa, now says, return back, the other people are going to file an appeal quickly to the Court of Appeal. And God forbid, INEC may now say, until the Court of Appeal hears your appeal, I am not going to effect, then there will be chaos in Nigeria.
So are you saying that what should be is that if they go to court,
Yeah.
until that matter is determined, there should not be any by
Once
election?
the court says the removal is wrong, INEC should allow him to go back, to allow sanity to prevail. They can be appealing, and when they appeal and they get it right or wrong, the same thing will happen. The governor has to go.
Okay, but what happens to that part where it says, look, they have to conduct by-elections within a certain time frame? Will that invalidate anything or affect it?
Look, you cannot build something on nothing. You cannot build legality on illegality. If the bottom line of the whole exercise is illegal, you cannot build any legality.
Is it not to the extent of the position of the deputy governor or who becomes the governor? Because I think it's clear there, since they haven't gone to court or no court has
Okay, let me
that
put it
the
this
governor
way.
has been impeached.
Let me put it to you this way. When do you have a by-election or election? It is only when there is a vacancy. I am telling you now that by operation of law, once there is an impeachment of a governor, the deputy takes over. So there is no vacancy. There can only be an election when there is a vacancy. By law, there is no vacancy, because once you impeach only the governor and you never impeached the deputy, the day you pronounce the impeachment that you are impeached, by operation of law, the deputy takes over. So there is no vacancy.
Very quickly.
The king dies, the king, like they say, if the king dies in London today, then, all hail the king again, So there is no vacancy.
Before we go, we've always talked about the type of democracy or government we should practice, which would also be which was also one of the talking points in the conference. We also looked at devolution of powers and vis-a-vis the formula which we just highlighted. We never finally got to a conclusion as to what kind of government we would want to run, whether a parliamentary system or a presidential system. So as it stands now, which do we say we want as a people, since we're still coasting along with the Constitution as it stands?
You see, with respect to Mr. President, he had very good intentions, because he never restricted anybody to what type of constitution we should have. it is the people there, the 400 or so people who sat down there, who decided to only amend the 1999 Constitution. What you are saying now is that outside the 1999 Constitution, why did these people not consider other forms of governance? They never did. Who asked them not to? Mr. President did not ask them not to do so. Why did they refuse to do so? Only you and I will guess. They know why. But they never touched it. Devolution of power, type of constitution, bicameral legislature. What do we need two houses for in Nigeria today when they are virtually doing the same thing?
We don't think they're there to check themselves because
No,
in the line of things, thinking about it, the legislature is a very powerful organ in any democracy. And for one body to hold that much power, you don't think we need two houses for them to be able to check themselves?
Look, there is no difference between the Senate and the House of Reps. The only difference that the Constitution gives them is the power to ratify appointments of ministers or the governor of central bank or any other executive positions. That creates the difference between the National Assembly and the, actually, if you ask me, the House of Representatives is more powerful than the Senate, because when it comes to money bills, which is the backbone of the country, they have the majority. And that is why when they are going to pass the budget, if the House of Representatives refuses to budge on any matter, they carry the day because of their majority.
Just quickly, how would you then rate the conference? Would you say it was a success?
It was a failure right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, it was a failure. Many of you did not note the Sikhism from the western part of Nigeria at the conference. Who represented the Yoruba race at the conference? Have you looked into that aspect? That majority of Yoruba APC boycotted the conference. Those who represented the Yoruba were the Afenire group who have an idea of what they want for Nigeria. Maybe you people forgot. Falaye started at that conference by saying that either this or nothing. That we want 6 geopolitical and we want a Yoruba or something. It died down like that. He never followed it up. Was he speaking for the Yorubas? You see, right from the beginning, I knew nothing will come out of Israel.
Well, that's where we'll have to let it go this morning. I'd like to thank you for coming on. Mr. Robert Clarke is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Always my pleasure.
Okay, then
Thank
we'll
you
be
very
back.
much.
We'll be back after this. Join us again.